Hi, my name is Vandana Kattar-Miller. I'm the former Director of Operations, Outreach and Planning for the Office of the Prime Minister. So I was always interested in politics, and I remember being interested in world affairs. I was that kid who loved newspapers and liked to talk with the adults. I'm an only child, so there were a lot of adult conversations I was a part of. I would say, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know political staffing was a career. Actually, what happened is that I always told myself I would work for someone who I really believed in. I knew politics, I heard things about, scary things about it, and I wanted to be with someone who I believed in. So I volunteered for my local MP that a client of mine at TV introduced me to, that was Navdeep Bains. So I just showed up as much as possible. I volunteered for years before I finally got a job with him, and that's what started it. I started in his constituent office, and then after he lost, I went to Queen's Park, working for a minister for about 8 months. And then Navdeep Bains introduced me to the Prime Minister, and I started with him. I worked in leadership campaign, and then I came here as an Ontario desk in third party. And from Ontario desk, we had a great time. I worked with the party office. We were rebuilding the party. We were doing a lot of grunt work. So, I was driving him around in my 2005 Chevrolet Cobalt, like all around Ontario, and it had a broken bumper. And then after, we had a successful win in 2015. And then, wanted to have experience in a minnow, worked in a Ministry of Science, Innovation, Economic Development under Navdeep Bains as the Director of Operations. And then I left on mat leave. I got a call from, the Prime Minister's office to come back as the Deputy Director of Outreach. And then I did that for a while. After the campaign, came back as Director of Outreach. And then after that campaign and another mat leave, I became the Director of Operations, Outreach, and Operations. I think for some women, politics is a very demanding career. Even when you have the most, great bosses and flexibility, it's really tough on a family. I myself have 2 children, and that's when I decided it was time to move to other things, and I think that's one part of it. There has been a time in politics where it's very tough. You have to be elbows up, and there has been in the past, and even still currently, and we're working through it, misogyny, and I think women just don't want to deal with that. Women are driven by positive work environments, teams, and their families. And I think that's why a combination of different factors that surround that is probably the reason why we have lower management. I would have liked to know that I'm sure every time you go into a meeting, everyone else is also at some point pretending, and not everyone knows more than you. And I think for me, I struggled with a lot of confidence. I always felt like this wasn't a place where I belonged. So now knowing that when I walk into a room, it's not like everyone's smarter than me. Everyone else is learning and trying to figure things out, but they're all posturing. I think I would have liked to have known that earlier on. The public pressure is probably the biggest difference. So I think when you're the politician, you are in front of people. You are the face of it. And you're depending on the staff to deliver for you, but you yourself are in the line of fire. So I think that public pressure is something that staff don't get. I think staff, you get, the joy of doing the work and being a part of it, but you're not gonna often get the hate on Twitter. You're not gonna get the hate on IG. You're not gonna have media asking if you're qualified for your job, because most likely no one knows you. So I think the difference is it's 2 different streams of a job. It's behind the scenes and doing still the hard work, or in front of the scenes doing the hard work, but also having to be on all the time, and that pressure that comes with it, especially for women and minority women. I think that's the biggest difference. I'm actually quite shy by nature. That's why I didn't want to be an elected official, and I would say it started off with me being nervous of my skin color, and I think being a dark-skinned woman, colorism is rampant in many cultures, and I was just scared to be in the front and in the limelight, so I never wanted to be. I think my ultimate decision really came from, I just don't like to be in front of the camera. I love having a bit more privacy and being behind the scenes. I think, that's very powerful, the work you get to do, and I think sometimes politicians don't get to do that fun stuff, And I think just for me and my family, to be upfront. That's not necessarily my personality. Like I'm not, I like to have a, glass of wine with a friend more so than a party. So I feel like for my more introvert personality, it was better for me to be a staffer. I think there were times when I was like slightly younger and more hot-headed that I probably could have, been more open-minded. I could have been less guarded with people. I could have been more of a builder. I learned that a bit later in my time in politics. But I think if I did it earlier on and learned how to step back and look at the bigger picture and, learn how to come at things with a different temperament, I think that would have served me well earlier on. Politics is very busy. You work at a pace that is probably not usually humanly possible. You're faster, you're up earlier, you get a very global view of things, and I think having taken all those skill sets and also just understanding how the world works and how to work with colleagues and across different sectors, coming into the private sector, that has served me well. I just know how to use my time well, I can deliver really fast, but I also have a mindset where, okay, I work in diversity and inclusion, change takes time. So how do I be a bridge builder? How do I take people along the way? And I think having that at politics and being a disruptor, but bringing it here and knowing how to do that here, that's been really helpful. Yes, definitely, because working in government, it's an institution. Institutions that have built on colonization, they've built on systemic racism, and unpacking that and dismantling it bit by bit takes time. I would say, I still remember when someone told me, well, we can't criticize police, and we have. I remember when someone told me we can't say systemic racism, and we do. I remember when someone told me we can't say Islamophobia, and we do. So I think knowing that sometimes, the ultimate goal is to move forward, and sometimes the journey doesn't matter as much as long as the goal is there. So sometimes saying, this took me 4 years, but it got done. Having that patience, working in another institution that's also wonderful and open to change, and being able to this is not the win today, but it's going to be the win tomorrow. How do I work towards that? I think that having that mindset and learning that at the Prime Minister's office has helped me and will continue to help me in this role here. I don't think there's a perfect timing. I think everyone's journey in politics is different. Some of my friends started as young liberals and they started at 18, 19 years old. They were starting university. Some started picking up signs when they're 12. I came into it in my mid-20s. So I don't think there's a perfect time. It just means your journey might be different from others, but that's your unique journey. And I think a career in politics is very unique to who you are. You will advocate for the things you need to advocate for, and it helps shape you as a person. So I think it doesn't really matter. There's no sweet spot as to when to start, but everyone's journey will be unique. Go for it. You don't get to have change unless you put yourself forward. And I think, the reason things change in politics is because women have been involved, people of color have been involved, and that intersectional piece is so important. But unless you raise your hand and get in there, change won't happen. You need to be the voice of change. You need to raise your hand and say, this is not right, or we need to move forward this way. And it's tough. It's a lot on people and a lot on women to hold that, but do it. Your voice matters. And there might be some bumps along the way, but I have spent 12 years in politics and I loved every moment, even under the toughest time. So I say go for it. Your voice matters, and you will break those barriers, you will break those glass ceilings no matter what. Even if you put a little small crack, you're gonna set the tone to break it for somebody else. So just get involved. It's important for women, it's important for the next generation, it's important for the country, and